Our next guest is Sidney Powell. Sidney Powell is well, even before she became so well known now, she was an accomplished attorney, especially had been a prosecutor, but had especially been aware of the challenges of the federal prosecutors on the American citizens. And she wrote a very well regarded book. It's this book here. It's called License to Lie. It's an extraordinary book. I recall hearing from Newt Gingrich, you got to read this, and I read it and said, I can't believe how important this book seems. And that was, in fact, licensetolie.com is a website that Sidney operates. You can buy the book there and see more of her writings. She also has a more recent book out, which is called Conviction Machine, which is standing up to the federal prosecutorial abuse. So she's been a leader for, I'd say, about a decade on this question of how is some of the prosecutorial abuse happening. And then in the midst of all this, maybe one of the greatest injustices in American public life and our legal system, General Mike Flynn's prosecution and what's continuing to drag on. In the middle of that, he decided, I need to get Sidney Powell. So Sidney Powell is his attorney. So first of all, let me stop talking and say welcome to Sidney Powell. Thanks for joining us, Sidney.
Oh, my pleasure, Ed. Thanks for having me.
So first, let me ask you the question a lot of our students are saying. You've had, over the years, well, you have your own children too, but you've had lots of students and interns. What do you say to young people right now? It seems like a crazy world where we're watching these young people come out of college, or maybe they're in the middle of college. How do you tell them to be encouraged?
Well, it is a crazy world, but each one of us can do whatever we can do to make it better. I mean, the power of one is still remarkable. I mean, I never got into law thinking I'd ever need to write a book. And the only reason I wrote it was because what I saw was so bad, I couldn't get the system to work and fix it, so I just had to do it. Right. So people need to find their calling and continue to pursue it for justice and all things right and faith and all things that make America good, regardless.
We're talking to Sidney Powell, and licensetolie.com is that website I mentioned. Sidney, tell us about, before we get to General Flynn, in this book you talk about the corruption in the Department of Justice over the last 20 years, I'd say. And tell me what you saw when you became a young lawyer. You said, this is what I care to do. And that, down to today, how things changed. And why do you think they changed?
I think they changed because people began realizing they could promote their own careers and self-interest by using the law as a weapon instead of as a means for resolving problems and disputes. And so this core group of corrupt prosecutors would do anything to win cases. They were targeting individuals based on their own social or perceived injustices without regard to the law. They were making up crimes. They were making up facts. They were making innocent conduct sound criminal. They destroyed Arthur Anderson and 85,000 jobs for nothing, right, only to be reversed by a unanimous Supreme Court 2 years later. They sent 4 innocent Merrill Lynch executives to prison while they hid the evidence that showed they were innocent and made up crimes against them too. And these people wound up being promoted by President Obama, and they were chosen initially by Bush people to serve on the Enron task force. And then they were promoted to the highest halls of government by Obama, who made one of the worst ones his White House counsel, another one his counterterrorism advisor. Another one was, of course, Andrew Weissman, who came back to the fraud section of the Department of Justice under Leslie Caldwell, who was involved in it too, and had been deputy director and general counsel of the FBI under Robert Mueller. I mean, these people stick together tighter than thieves and protect each other. They protected each other through the whole thing. There was always one of them in the Department of Justice to look out for the others.
I just already got a question from one of our viewers, Sidney. We're talking with Sidney Powell, and they said, what will happen to General Flynn? And as you know, maybe I'll expand the question. People have watched this and said, well, they dropped the case. I mean, they dropped the case in May. And so one of our viewers, a college student, said, what's going to happen to him? Tell us where we are with that and what you expect.
Well, right now we're waiting for Judge Sullivan to rule on the government's motion to dismiss and on our motion to disqualify him, which I believe required his immediate disqualification, but obviously that's being denied because he hasn't disqualified himself, and I was pretty sure it would be denied, right, but I had to file it to make the record anyway. And, he was told to do it with appropriate dispatch. We are almost 200 days since the government filed its motion to dismiss, And it's been over 2 weeks now since the hearing on the motion to dismiss. But effectively, Judge Sullivan picked up the mantle of the prosecutors, appointed his own friend, Mr. John Gleason, to pursue the prosecution of General Flynn, and the D.C. Circuit majority allowed him to do it. So the public has gotten a real education in how our judicial system works at its very, very worst.
So what will happen to him? You know, what can we expect? I mean, first of all, it looks like it'll just drag on. That no matter what the system, as someone said, they called it lawfare, and meaning, you know, warfare by use of law, and that the punishment is the process. The process is the punishment. I mean, will you know? Are we more here? I guess, is there any way to know?
I don't think there's going to be another hearing. Judge Sullivan has the motions before him. He has to rule on them. If he doesn't do it with some degree of dispatch, we'll have to seek another mandamus against him. But I don't expect to have another hearing on it unless it happens to be in the Supreme Court, because General Flynn will be exonerated. He has to dismiss with prejudice. If he doesn't, the Supreme Court will. The law is that clear.
Right. We're talking with Sidney Powell. Sidney, I got another question earlier today where I was exchanged with some of the students that I knew would be coming on, and asked, why is it that all these people that have clearly done something wrong don't seem to be held accountable? Why does that keep happening? That, you know, that there's clearly people that did bad things. Is it because they were somehow careful enough not to break a law, even though it looks like they treated people unfairly? But why is no one being held accountable?
There were multiple laws broken. Making up a crime against someone is obstruction of justice. They falsified documents to a federal court that are required to be sworn under penalty of perjury and verified. They have lied to Congress and other investigators. There are multiple crimes that have been committed. I am appalled it has taken as long as it has. I understand it's a complex investigation, and I hope the delay simply means that John Durham is doing everything right and will have all the T's crossed and I's dotted before he pulls the trigger on indictments. And I'm sure coronavirus crap helped hold it up to some extent also. But I agree with everyone. It's absolutely appalling that a lot more wasn't done faster to hold each of these people accountable for what is clear criminal conduct.
So what's the, you know, for college students, they're sitting there and they're saying, okay, you know, I'm a political science major, or I'm a whatever major, and I think I might go to law school. But boy, the system seems to not work well right now. And system seems rigged. If you're Hillary Clinton, you'll get away with it. If you're John Brennan, you'll get away with it. If you're General Flynn, you'll get your life turned upside down for 4 years. Why would anybody want to go into that system? Why would it be a positive thing to do?
Because we need more good people who see the corruption to get in there and fix it. People used to ask me years ago, decades ago now, you know, why I was going to law school. There were too many lawyers. And my standard answer was, there are not enough good ones.
Right.
We still have that same problem. And they also need to be working every day on the phone banks for Republican candidates, or knocking on doors for Republican candidates, to make sure we paint this country red in this election. It's absolutely imperative to restore the rule of law, that we get Donald Trump a second term. Frankly, he was robbed of his first term, but look how much good he did nonetheless. And imagine what he can do with the mandate that the people need to give him to drain the swamp that is now so painfully apparent is pervasive in Washington, D.C. and elsewhere.
That's what I was just going to say. License to Lie probably is the first. It's the first real. You just use license to lie instead of drain the swamp. It's really drain the swamp is the challenge, because the swamp monsters come back and forth. They go in and out. They go out to high-paying jobs and come back in and come back out. And so, you know, you got to see that. Did the president, you know, was he able to get some of that done? I know the frustration in your part about the Department of Justice and the Mueller investigation and all. I mean, are you confident it's directionally the right way, even if it's not sufficient yet?
Yes, I think it's heading in the right direction, but it's been way too slow and not nearly widespread enough. There's probably, I mean, we need a major culture change at the Department of Justice and the FBI to go back to their true mission to seek the truth and to seek justice and not convictions. We've lost that in spades over the last 20 years. It's done nothing but get worse.
We're talking right now with Sidney Powell, and we're taking questions from folks on whatever platform you're on. If you put a question in, our team will put them up. Sidney, one of the themes of our Collegians Summit is to talk to the students about what they're hearing in their schools, a lot of them at the universities, from history professors or poli-sci or whoever that are just off base. I mean, American exceptionalism. The president gave a speech a month ago, and later on in the Eagles in this summit, we'll talk with John Schlafly about that speech at the. I think he did form the 1776 commission there and said we're going to educate our children to be patriotic and to be celebrating the Constitution, not running it down. How do you feel about that part of it? I mean, I know you said you got to have every individual's got to get in there and fight and make their way, but over the kind of overarching in the country, the problem of people saying America's not good enough and say socialism is better, and people say that with a straight face, and you say you don't know what you're talking about.
They don't. A lot of them think it means being more friendly with other people. I mean, what people think of as socialism is bizarre. And we are not becoming socialists, we're becoming fascist in the truest sense of the definition, because corporate America is now merging with the left to enforce all these outrageous policies that divide us and cause us to be submissive to ridiculous mandates. It's very concerning. Look at what Twitter and Google and all the big social media giants are doing, deciding what you can listen to, what you can hear, what you can see, what you can think about. They're greatly influencing or trying to influence the election. So we have to rely more on independent media outlets and our own research and truth seeking to get to the bottom of what's really going on.
Yeah. Sidney, I don't know if you saw this, and I kind of smile as I say it because I know it'll get you going. I've talked enough about this issue with you, but the World Health Organization said a few days ago that lockdowns of the economy are the wrong approach, if you can believe it, and that people shouldn't do that because why? The World Health Organization said it'll impact too many people in the community you're living in if you shut down the economy, especially low-income folks that won't have a job, won't have daycare, won't have help. And what we watched in this country where the bureaucrats, the scientists said to President Trump, you've got to shut down the economy. He listened to those scientists now, and then he said, we can't do this. We got to go back to work. I guess the World Health Organization finally agrees with Trump, but after we spent 6 months of our national life in this kind of in-between land, it's extraordinary to see the power of these bureaucrats.
And how many trillions of dollars have been lost, how many small businesses have been completely devastated and shut down, how many lives have been lost to suicide, how many children have been abused and neglected. The overall costs of this disastrous lockdown that many Democratic governors are still continuing, and frankly, some Republican governors. I'm very unhappy with Governor Abbott in Texas, who needs to open everything up and should have done it ages ago, and stop this mask mandate. We all know they don't work to stop the virus. If you feel like you want to wear one, wear it, but don't mandate that someone else wear it. That should be a matter of individual choice in any free society.
All right. Sidney, I got some comments on Facebook. Thank you for what you do for General Flynn. He's American patriot. We're praying for the truth to come out. Another one, thank you for defending General Flynn. He needed you. Praying for a quick and full dismissal. One more, and I'll finish with this question because this is a good one. When will you, Sidney Powell, run for office? Will you run for president after Trump? And then, of course, you've had this question before. Will you go in and run the FBI in the second term of Trump? So any comment after you get General Flynn off, you've taken on that Herculean task. Maybe you can, I guess you can't split the atom. That was already done, but you could do something else. But will you run for office or serve in the administration? What's that look like?
If the president asks me to serve, I will do my dead level best to serve and help him drain the swamp as it should have been done 4 years ago.
All right. Okay. Well, it sounds good. I'll let him know. Thank you, Sidney. As always, license2lie.com is a place you can go to find everything. Where else should people go to keep track of what's going on with General Flynn in your case, in the case?
SidneyPowell.com, SIDNEY. And follow me on Twitter at Sidney Powell, the number 1. But you can sign up for updates on the website, and we send out things when anything of significant happens with the court.
Okay.
And I think we're going to get some more documents sometime soon. I think there's still more evidence to come.
Okay, SidneyPowell.com and Sidney Powell 1 at Sidney Powell 1 on Twitter. We'll make sure to put it out there on social media. Thank you, Sidney, for taking the time. I know it's busy, and we appreciate you very much.
Thank you, my pleasure, and thank you all for your prayers and support. We feel them.
Great, thank you. Thanks, Sidney Powell. And